Welcome back, everybody. This is Tucker. Let's talk weather. We're tracking a powerful storm and severe weather is coming. This includes the potential for a tornado outbreak and widespread damaging wind. Then we'll jump into what you are not hearing about: widespread temperature swings and late season snow potential. Hey everybody, hope you've enjoyed this really nice stretch of weather, especially across the central US recently. Out here in the Northeast, I'm kind of annoyed because it's cold now, but we're not getting snow. Anyway, let's get into the severe weather threat, and you're seeing this right next to me here. This is our prime day. It is Tuesday the 4th, but it is one of 3 days that we're going to see severe weather across the central US, into the southeast, and then all the way to the east coast, as this multi-day threat is going to bring mainly tornadoes and damaging wind. It looks like it will be a significant one, and we're going to come back to this map, but I want to show you the setup, and we'll get into some of the higher end pieces that are going to bring this storm together. And here's that first big ingredient. You're going to see this jet right here begin to move eastwards, and what this is going to do is it's going to provide a lot of energy for these storms to really form and get going. We have this trough that comes in. Basically, it's colder air higher up in the atmosphere, and that helps to get things to rise, and that's how our storms begin. But this jet, when you're seeing those red and especially yellow colors, that is a lot of wind energy fueling these storms. As this moves through the south central US here on Monday and Tuesday, you're seeing that wind energy basically get applied to the atmosphere, and storms will use that to create damaging wind and tornadoes, and it really just supports the entire severe weather setup as a whole, but especially those two ingredients feed off of this. So there's our jet cutting through the area that'll be likely impacted by severe weather. That's generally going to be this area I'm circling here. That is where we're going to see that wind energy come into play. And as we move into your Wednesday, this is Tuesday night now, and into Wednesday, you're seeing that spread farther northwards as well, which is going to allow even the East Coast to see severe weather too. But there is more than just this jet, although that's a very good indicator of severe weather. Let me show you some of the instability as well, and talk about how that may hamper the severe risk a little bit in some spots too. So when looking at severe weather, a lot of times that really strong jet can overcome weak instability, and in this case it will, but you still need some instability for storms. And as we look ahead here, we're going to move this into Monday the 3rd first. You're going to see some instability out here across Texas and Oklahoma. That's certainly enough for some severe weather, but you can see it's a more narrow area. So I'm not expecting this to be quite as widespread, at least on Monday. As we move into Tuesday, you're going to see again some instability, but once more, it's a pretty narrow area. So this will support a pretty fine, small line of storms that's going to be moving across the region throughout the day. But because we don't have a ton of instability, it's going to cut off how far north this severe weather threat can go. You're not going to get storms north of Missouri because you're just simply not going to have instability. As we get to the East Coast, you do see we have one more round of storms that's going to come. We have instability that rides all the way into Pennsylvania. Not convinced we'll see severe weather in Pennsylvania, but it certainly looks like a chance as we're able to pull more of that warmth and humidity farther north. But as a whole, that will be the limiting factor with these storms, and I believe it's the reason we're not looking at a significant, massive outbreak. It will be an outbreak, and it will be very impactful, but it's not going to be one of the highest end outbreaks, just because while we have the wind, we simply don't have a surplus of instability out there. Now I want to look at those severe weather threats, and this is ongoing as I record this, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we have a severe weather threat on Sunday across Texas and Oklahoma. That threat shifts a little bit farther to the east here as we get into Monday. We talked about that just a moment ago, and while there isn't a ton of instability, that wind energy will allow for at least a damaging wind threat here and a secondary tornado threat. As we move into Tuesday, you saw this. This is our big threat right here. Remember, we're not expecting severe weather north of Missouri. I would say even the central part of Missouri is about as far north as this goes because we don't have the instability. And I will also mention at night, there are some areas in the middle ground here. So portions, a lot of Tennessee, portions of Georgia, that will not actually have to deal with much severe weather because those storms will die down with the loss of, daytime heating. So that's very helpful. But I will say for those areas that the storms are going to pass through during the day, and we're looking at a pretty good morning to evening threat, we're talking about the potential for tornadoes and damaging wind, especially here. And I believe both are pretty big threats, tornadoes and damaging wind. It's mainly the lower Mississippi River Valley. We do have a bullseye for certain right here across southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And I would expect a lot of our activity to come in the form of a line of storms with a few individual supercells out ahead of it. So that's why we're going to have an equal parts tornado and damaging wind threat. And then everything shifts to the east here. This is our Wednesday threat. You can see it goes all the way up into New Jersey. We do have severe weather that will go as far south as northern Florida as well. And I expect this to be mainly a damaging wind threat. Yes, there will still be a tornado threat associated with this, but I believe damaging wind once again takes over as the primary concern here, especially because we'll be looking at a line of storms as opposed to individual storms. And this is going to mainly be in the afternoon and evening. And of course, wanted to give you a look at this on simulated radar. What you're seeing here are those storms pop up. This is on Monday and heading into Tuesday. So this is going to continue and strengthen this line of storms as we head into the main event. And what I'll say here is you have this line clearly, but you also perhaps have some activity ahead of it. That's where we could have a few individual cells. That's primarily what our tornado threat's going to arrive from. And on the backside, that line is where the damaging wind threat is going to evolve from. So we'll see that especially during the day. This is in the afternoon. That's why our significant severe threat's going to be right here, because these storms just happen to be moving through the area during the day, and you have a good amount of wind energy and instability. Let's switch panels so we can follow this line of storms as it moves eastwards. I'll get us back up to speed here, and we're going to be looking at the overnight hours to start things off as these storms continue to move into some of those areas farther east. So here they are, and this is why our severe weather threat is not quite as significant, especially out here in eastern Tennessee. But once we get into the daytime again, which is right here, we're back to perhaps some storms strengthening again. You have this line. It's not as good looking, but certainly still the potential of producing damaging wind and a lower potential of producing tornadoes. It moves through the East Coast, and I know you're seeing rain up here, by the way, into New England. That is going to be just heavy rain. Could be some rumbles of thunder, but there's not enough instability for severe storms. Again, that's cut off right around here, around southern New Jersey or in the D.C. area. Wouldn't be surprised if it's actually cut off a little farther south. But that's how our threat is going to play out. And then after Thursday, this is actually Thursday evening, these storms are going to die down, and we're looking at a chance for some snow on the backside in some spots as well. But speaking of snow and other types of weather, we're going to jump into a very big temperature swing coming this week. I'm going to show you everything you can expect if you're not seeing the severe weather, and even if you are, some of the changes that are going to come after. So now I wanted to look at some of those big temperature fluctuations, and it's going to impact the entire U.S., not just the areas that are going to see storms. But what you're going to see is a huge 180-degree flip as we go from the beginning of the week with cold air out east, warm air in the central part of the U.S., and cold air in the southwest. A total change. So let's move this forward into Wednesday now. We're going to skip ahead here, and there it is. Our storm system, which is going to bring severe weather to the southeastern U.S., is going to bring changes countrywide to the temperature pattern. We go back to warm air in the eastern U.S., cold air in the central U.S., and that's a huge flip from where we were, near average temperatures out west. But that system, it's going to do more than bring severe storms. It's going to pull a much different air mass into the United States. But we flip again as we get into the later days here of March. Generally speaking, the eastern U.S. is going to be colder, and that will extend actually into the south central U.S. as well. The southeastern U.S. is going to maintain some warmth out here, and the north central, northwestern U.S. will temporarily have some warming. This is, again, near the 9th or 10th, so the following weekend. And as we move this even farther, what eventually is going to happen is I believe this warmer air is going to settle in across the eastern U.S., and that is going to really cut off chances for winter weather. So if you're hoping for snow and you live out east, I don't expect your chances are very good to begin with, but if it's after the 10th, the chances are becoming very low. That said, different story out west. I do expect we're going to continue to see some colder air, and this could be very beneficial for those mountains if you want to see snow out there. But let's take a look at actual temperatures on the ground too and get an idea of what you will feel as you step out the door and as we look for potential snow. So here we are. Actual temperatures are going to start off mild across the central U.S. here on Monday. They'll be cold out here across the northeast. I mean, we could be below zero in spots in the northeast. Monday will be a mild day again for the central U.S. You can see that warmer air getting farther north, could be up to 60 in places like South Dakota. Meanwhile, the Northeast stuck with temps in the 20s. The West Coast, pretty average. Highs are going to be around 60 in the Valley in California. We begin to see that pattern flip around here as soon as Tuesday, though. You're seeing that cold air begins to lift back north, especially out east. Mild temperatures across the south central, southeastern U.S. Of course, we need that for the severe weather. Temperatures are a big part of instability. Then on Wednesday, that milder air shifts farther east. You can see highs up the coast here going to get up to about 60 degrees, if not exceeding that. Colder air begins to replace it at this point in the central U.S. Highs will be around the low 30s in the north central United States. Thursday, that cold air really begins to settle in, but it's not going to be as deep as we've seen in past cold air events. So here on your Thursday and into Friday, it's going to be chilly, but somewhat mild across most of the country, so it won't be too bad. Friday, we're still in that sort of middle ground weather pattern. It'll be pretty average. And then as we get into the weekend, we're going to see that milder air really begin to take over much of the central U.S. At this point, the east or northeast, at least, the East Coast staying on the cold side. And it will continue to be cold if you're in the northeast here, as opposed to the rest of the country, which will be quite mild heading into that weekend I mentioned before, the 9th and 10th. So really depends on where you are. But as we head into those following days, the 10th, 11th, 12th, look at how mild it is right there across the central U.S. That's temperatures that could be reaching 70, possibly as far north as Nebraska before we do see that cold air at least cut off some of that deep warmth. But we're looking at a big change in the weather pattern, of course, and let's jump into where we may see snow before we wrap things up. So we're going to use one of our forecast models to help us out with where the snow is most likely to fall, and I believe it paints a good picture. I've looked at this before, so that's why I'm showing you it. And what you're seeing first off, actually, is with that severe weather, I do want to mention we could be looking at decent snowfall for portions of the north central U.S. So like Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan could be looking at snow from the backside of this severe weather. And that could total as high as about 6 to 10 inches of snow in some spots. So don't sleep on that. That's primarily going to come here. You'll see that snow begin to add up on Wednesday, more or less. That's what that is coming from. So I had to mention that because you will be looking at a decent snowfall in the north central U.S. Otherwise, we're all looking at more snow out here in the mountains out west, but for the northeast, chances are going to be pretty slim. There may be some snow in the mountains in the interior, but as a whole, to get snow on the coastline here, I don't think that's actually going to occur. I do think that's overdone. I'm not saying it'll be impossible, but the 9th and 10th would be a low chance for anything like that. We'll move this forward into the 13th and 14th, about as far as we looked at the temperature pattern. And we're not adding that much more unless you're in the mountains out west. That is, of course, where the pattern has been very good all winter and will continue to stay very good too. But other than the snow that we're getting from the backside of this storm on this Wednesday in the north central U.S., it's going to be pretty dry for most of the country, besides a little bit of extra lake effect snow and perhaps a little bit of snow in the mountains in the northeast. So if you're a winter weather lover, I guess what I can say is go to the west, because that's where the snow is going to be, and it's going to be hard to find it elsewhere. So if you made it this far, guys, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to ask any questions you have in the comments. I'm always here to answer anything you're curious about, and be sure to check back for updates as we keep a close eye on this severe weather threat. I'll be back here again soon, and I'll see you here next time.